All right, so I've gotten a few requests to do a tour of my shop and over the years, and I've never done like a real tour kind of thing. So I thought I'd kind of chip away at this. I've been waiting to like have everything clean and dialed in so people could see the best of what I do in here. That's never gonna happen. So being real with y'all, I'm being real with myself. So I'm just gonna show you where I am right now. I have a lot of projects going on right now, like 5 or 6 kind of irons in the fire. And so this way you can kind of see the workflow of my studio space. Now, I work at a small place called Georgetown College. It's an awesome institution in central Kentucky. And so I have access to a machine shop downstairs. By machine shop, really like electric tools. So primarily my studio space is upstairs in a building on campus, and it's primarily hand tool oriented. So I have a series of benches you'll see here in a second that facilitate that work up here. But downstairs, I'm not going to do a tour of that shop, but it has all the basics in terms of table saw, band saws, chop saws, working surfaces, a couple of benches, and then a metal studio for all the other stuff. So I have welders and casting equipment and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and joiners and planers and whatever else. So that's all there. But the interesting stuff, kind of where I function in day to day, is up here in what it's called my office, right? So my office and my studio space are kind of linked. It's 2 rooms right next to each other. Maybe I'll do a little diagram or something here. Maybe I'll take the time, maybe I won't, we'll see. But I'll walk you through here in a second. But I wanted to we'll start over here in this corner, just because I'm standing here. So when you come in the space, most people get a little overwhelmed because there's a lot in here. And I always have to remind myself that 18 years ago at the time of this filming, this was an empty room that they allowed me to partake and like live in. And so I've filled it with everything that I have and I am in here, and it's changed all the time. So I have a card catalog, y'all see a little bit, that came in last year. Tool cabinets come and go, artwork comes and goes. I use the walls for storage. But some things are kind of stable, and you'll get the stories on those things. But you'll see me film from this perspective a lot because I have some fun things over in this kind of area. And so the first of which is my Moravian workbench. I made this for an art exhibition in 2016, 2015, I can't remember. At the Lexington Art League, it was an exhibition called The Less You Say. And I took over an old historic home that's now a gallery and renovated the spaces with artworks to put it back into the context of a home. I'll show some of those pieces here as I talk. But this bench was made for that show, not only to have it in the show, but mainly to use it. I actually built all the artwork on site with hand tools in the spaces that they were exhibited in. So as you see these images coming across the screen, know that in each of these rooms, I was making this all traditionally by hand over the course of 3 to 4 months. So, but the top of the Moravian workbench is actually an old floor joist from a building in Louisville, Kentucky, which was an old firehouse. And these were taken out in the early 1900s, 1918, 1919, when they moved buildings. And so a good friend of mine who is no longer with us gave me a few pieces of this old growth, huge, thick poplar that was used as the floor joist. And so I use this as my bench top. I have a tool tray in the back that always is cluttered full of stuff. Yeah, lots of stuff. We can sit here and talk all day about every little detail in here. But I have tools from my grandfather, who's a very important person in my life. He's always provided me with tools until the day he passed away. All the stuff you would find in southern Mississippi. But I have tools from him, notes from my kids, things that I'm working on, a little bit of everything. But down here, I actually have storage. I'll paint down here maybe in a second. But they're all these huge cherry drawers. They're about like this. I got 8 of these dudes for everything from small tools to pens, pencils, all that kind of jazz. I have some wood species that have been sitting here, wood pieces that have been sitting here for a long time. This is a piece of olive wood from Mesopotamia. It's like 1,000 years old. No idea what to do with it. We'll see in the future. This piece that I talk about regularly, this is a eucalyptus burl that I bought when I first got into woodworking 20-something years ago. I don't know how long ago. 25? I don't know. But let's see if I can get this. I talk about this piece of wood often because it's so beautiful, and it started out totally square. It was meant for wood turning, so they waxed it and kept it green. I was just smitten with the grain on this thing, and so I bought it thinking I would turn it into something one day, and never have, because it's just too pretty as it is. So there's my clock. We'll talk about clocks in a second, but a little bit of everything in here. I have traditional hand saws that I use up here in my sawtail. This used to have 2 drawers in it, and drawers got in the way. They weren't really easy to use, so I got rid of those. But every little bit, from little saws to big saws. I think I did a little talk about saws in the video of the Sitka violin, and so you can check those out. But yeah, they kind of range from everything I've made. So this is a Reagan back saw that I made from scratch years ago. I got a cute little, I think I put it in the other video, this cute little dovetail saw. I'm about an hour south of Cincinnati, and this thing has on it, says the Cincinnati Public Schools right there. If I can get on camera, there you go. But all the way up to really big saws, some that I've made, like this big rip saw, and I have an even bigger one over here. I have a couple of cool D8s and old Westons and old Atkins and a bunch of old stuff. But yeah, so this little area is mainly for hand sawing, hand planing. This bench runs up against in the corner of the wall, so it's not great for filming, but I'll use it a lot of times for hand planing. I have a couple different series of stops over here, as well as my leg vise. And antique tools kind of collect in the corner. I got so many tools over here that I need to get rid of. But some of them I absolutely love. If you guys have ever seen one of these, I love this. This is a brace that you would drill, but it allows you to get up into tight spaces like next to a wall, on a floor, or up in a joist. So it allows you to drill straight in a corner. But I have a whole bunch of tools sitting everywhere. I also have some relics. So you can see right there, there's these long skinny strips. These were actually part of a sculpture called State of the Mother. Put up some pictures here, where I made a self-typing typewriter. And that work was really, really something special for me, but I can't keep those works around. So after the exhibitions, if they don't sell, usually I disassemble them and use their parts for something else, and then I take a relic or a piece of that to hold on to. So I have one there. I also have one up top. I'll see if I can pan up there a little bit. One called Prodigal, which was a machine. I used to be a kinetic kind of sculptor, and it was a machine that drew 2 lines and then erased them. And so you could put a sheet of paper into it and let it run, and you would walk away with a blank sheet of paper, but the evidence of those lines as the kind of work. So anyhow, so that's this corner. Also in my sawtail, I have a bunch of fun little things. So I talk about them often. This is Dusty. This was a gift from my wife's grandmother. And she used to collect, she had kids' toys. She was a child at heart, and we loved her. Recently I got a little house, which I need to make a shelf for. This is the work of Robert Fennell. He is a metalsmith, silversmith sculptor. He gave me this little house when I was at the Smithsonian Craft Show. I got a bunch of little things from students, everything around. I have my Whack-A-Majig. This is from my friend Jacob in Canada. It's a piece of lignum vitae with a walnut handle. We traded. I got a Whack-A-Majig, which is this big beefy thing, and he got one of my little finger hammers, which he often sticks in his nose, which is cool. This was actually part of, this is a bow that I never finished making. I have ADHD, and I started a lot of things. But, a second. This was actually in my MFA show at the University of Georgia. This is a little cranking box that would rotate and move all sorts of pieces. I got pictures of my wife and all sorts of fun things. Another relic, this was another kinetic machine. It was a machine that played a harmonica on the blow and the draw. I'll put some pictures up of all this stuff. And, but yeah, so fun little space to work in. I'll pan in and see some other artworks, and then we'll move on kind of to the next corner. All right, I forgot to mention this little gem right here. So I have a lot of pencils and pens that float around everywhere. And so before I built the drawers down here that I use, I utilize the inside of this wall space. So this little guy comes out and it's my pencil jar. So I'll collect pencils from around the shop, put them in here, use them, whatever. And then when I'm done with them, or I don't need them right now, it goes in that little pocket that lives inside the wall. So yeah, so fun stuff. This is actually supposed to be a desk clock, but I made a little captured little panel for it so it can still slide in and out. This was a gift from my then girlfriend, now wife. We've been married for 20 years this year. And so this was the clock in my studio in Georgia. So I always had a little piece of her in there. All right, so right when you come in the front door, or the main door of my studio / office space, this is the kind of stuff you'll see. Usually it's a bench full of stuff, but I'm almost done with the new work that's sitting here, so I just moved it per chance. I have the bad habit of, as I work, I get stuff done and I just keep pushing it, so when the end of the bench starts getting too cluttered, that's when I know it's time to clean. But I have a main bench here, which I'll talk about, and then my cabinets, which I'll actually go through here in a second, my main cabinets. But when I came here, I moved here from the University of Georgia, where I got a degree in printmaking, master's degree in printmaking. And before that, I was living in DC, and before that, I was living in Florida, kind of all around. But this bench, my primary bench in the studio space that I've had for the last 20 years, it was made from a bowling alley in Georgia that went out of business. And so I got a piece of lane, so it's hard maple lane. But it's now getting thinner because I've had to level it a few different times over the time. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. I might add to it or bolster it up, but the bolts that go through the whole thing to like tighten it all together or adjust it, I'm gonna start peeking into that territory in the next couple years. But it's a bowling alley lane on top of these two bathroom cabinets lowers that someone was getting rid of at the time. And I assembled it into a bench and then ended up drilling all the dog holes in it, adding a vise to it, putting a tool rack on it. It has a leg chop vise here, and then a sliding dead man here. So yeah, but this kind of Frankenstein bench has kind of held a special place in my heart. It's been a great bench for years and years and years. I primarily work obviously on these sides. You can see all the wear and tear. I've thought about putting in like a chopping block style, like drop in that I could change out so I don't have to level it quite as often, because once it gets too damaged down here, I gotta level the whole thing. Or I could put a vise on that side that I've thought about multiple times, and using double sides, but that's a whole other day. But anyways, so we'll talk about these two cabinets. Oh, I gotta talk about my light system. So I don't know if this is in the camera frame. This was during COVID, when I had to teach online, and teaching online is awful for me, especially in a physical kind of medium. So teaching printmaking or woodworking or ceramics or welding, I mean, anything online like that is really tough. And so, but I needed a good light source, and so this dude right here is fantastic. It's like a garage light that lights up. But I have it on this swinging gantry that finds its own kind of middle point, and it's based off of wires that run through the ceiling, which are like 15 feet in here, go up, all culminate down to this little, like basically little fishing reel that I made, and I can lower my light or my camera that I would mount to. This line can hold like 100-something pounds. And so I can raise and lower my light and camera, and I would teach from an aerial kind of perspective here. This is where I edit all my videos and everything else. Nothing fancy over here. Yeah, so we'll get into the cabinets next. Let's go ahead and look at those. All right, so I've got three main cabinets on this wall, and one of which is a hand plane cabinet. This one was the first one that I'd made. It's for all my marking and hand tools, and at the time, this is for all like dovetail work, layout work, chisel work, all of that. And so I'd found this piece of wood that was going to be thrown away for firewood, and it had been cut at that extreme kind of angle, and I thought it'd be beautiful, almost like cathedral-like, to kind of build doors around it. It's a really interesting piece of like spalted maple, basically. But the walnut in here is all hand done. Well, everything is hand done. So this whole cabinet and this whole cabinet, there's no electricity used in making them. So they're all traditionally hand done with hand tools. Every dovetail, all that kind of stuff, all the angles, everything else. But this cabinet, the walnut in this one came from my friend Daryl Kinser. It was in his front yard and they were getting rid of this tree. Part of it was dying, it had broken off. So I got this large piece of it, I went and cut it up. His wife Kristen gave me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lunch. It was a great day. She's a kindergarten teacher, and if you haven't had a PB&J from a kindergarten teacher, it's something special. So, but anyhow, so this cabinet, which is just French pleated on the wall, houses, like I said, all of these kinds of tools for me. It has chisel racks on both sides, and then all of like my primary measuring and layout tools. The cool part is this drawer at the bottom, right here. And when I first made this, the drawer front, I had it flipped 180 degrees here, but I didn't like where this little white dash was up in the corner. And it was kind of distracting when you saw it in place. So out of just gut response, I flipped it, and I was like, yeah, that's much better. And then finished making it, not thinking about it, and then everybody else is like, wow, that looks like Kentucky. And that's kind of where I live, where this knot is. So it's kind of serendipitous, but kind of fun. So it has spalted maple on the sides, walnut backs, but this little caddy drawer has a handle that I made that pops out of it. And I realized that nothing would fit in there unless the handle could slide back. So let me walk closer here, show you a little detail of it. All right, so I thought this thing was super slick. So the handle comes out and then bends aside so you can use everything. So the original intention of this was that I could load everything in that cabinet in here and take it downstairs when I was teaching. But now it's just become full of stuff and the cabinet's full of stuff. So it's become basically like a drawer that can come out. I've never put a handle on it because it has a handle up here. So yeah, that's our little cabinet up top. Now let's talk about the one below it. All right, so below this cabinet is my screw cabinet. Now, this started out as a really funny situation because I think most people, at least in the States, would understand these little boxes. You get these 1 pound little screw boxes, and I had tons of them sitting around. So I thought it'd be really great to make just a shelf with pockets this exact size. So I made this as a shelf with pockets and loaded it all up, and I was super proud. I'm like, yay, it looks great. And then realized that I couldn't grab any of these boxes out because they were the exact size as the pockets. So it was like an ultimate failure. You're like, man, I just spent all day making this fun little thing, dovetailing it all together, and I didn't even think about the fact that I don't have clearance for my fingers. So I realized I'd have to make drawers, which would actually work well. So I'd have drawers for each of these things. This has worked out really well for me because anytime I go to a job site or I have to go across campus or anywhere else and I need screws, I'll just grab the box and throw it in my bag. And thankfully, I've never lost a drawer. I did lose a drawer for a solid like 2 years. I had no idea where it went off to. And then I was in the basement of our library and found it. And I was like, oh right, I had to go fix something over there. So, but thankfully I haven't lost any. But each of these has dovetails in it. I'll pull one up close here. So here's our little drawer. All hand cut little dovetails. So I have them on each side. And I just half-lapped, rabbited the backs of them. But yeah, so lots and lots of little dovetails in that little project. Now also, if you're curious about how I keep these in order, one, they're all identical, so they can shuffle. But the grain does book match and kind of wave through here, and I have them labeled on the backs of where they originally were, just by letter. So it's like a reverse alphabet. So if I ever get one out of spot or something, I can always put it back in the right spot. But these hold nails and screws and everything else. The next big one, this one weighs about as much as I do, I feel like. This is a really big hand plane cabinet. I realized that I had so many hand planes sitting out everywhere. I have a lot of hand tools, and I've collected them for years and years and years. And the advice I give everybody at this point talking about tools, when people are like, man, you have so many tools. And I'm like, I didn't at one point, right? So 25 years in or something, this is how many I have now. So when you see what I have here in the drawers on bookshelves here, I get them from all over, whether it's from yard sales or estate sales or flea markets, anywhere. My grandfather, like I mentioned before, was in Mississippi, and he would come across hand planes every now and then and find them for me. He got really big into hand saws for a while, which is nuts, because I told him, I was like, oh, I was restoring hand saws and making some hand saws at the time. And I said, yeah, Pops, I'm into, making these hand tools and the hand saws. He's like, oh, okay. And the next time I went to visit him, he just gave me boxes of old hand saws. And not many of them are very good. They're just the plates, basically, with kind of trash handles. But I have like 60-something, 70-something hand saws in this little studio space, a lot of which I need to restore or work on. They're not my main users. I've cut some of them up for scraper cars and all that kind of stuff. But he would do the same thing for planes. He'd show up and have like 3 or 4 hand planes when I'd come visit every year or so. And it's like a 17-hour drive for me to him. Anyhow, and some of them are great, some of them are not. A lot of times I'll give them away to students. But anyways, but I had so many hand planes sitting around, and the advice I gave everybody, going back to that, was when you start out, if you build a new project, every time you have a new project, you add one small tool, nothing major, small tool, and a new skill. So I gave the analogy of a box. If you build jewelry boxes, the first one you make, you'll make like mitered edges. The next one you make finger joints or dovetails, right? Learn a new skill, and then add a drawer to it with dividers using, half lap or mortises or anything like that. So figure out what you're gonna make, add a little tool. So if you're gonna do dovetails, get a nice little dovetail saw, right? Or whatever you wanna do. So add a new little tool and add a skill, and years and years in, you'll have everything you've ever needed, and you haven't wasted anything. I have a lot of people that will be like, I want to get into woodworking, and so they buy some expensive tools. You don't even know if you need those, right, for what you want to do. So figure out what you want to do, and then slowly build your tool set to match your skill set. So that being said, I've only bought 2 tools in this cabinet new. The rest are all old, restored, and whatever else is. And that's the advice I also give, is always start with a number 4 or number 5 hand plane and restore it. You'll learn how it works, you'll learn how to clean it up, you'll learn how to fix it, you'll learn how to sharpen really well, and you're not depending upon a new tool, right? And it's way cheaper. So, that being said, this dude right here has everything from a Stanley number 8, all the way up here, this tall one, down to this tiny one made by my friend Byrne Billsley in Wales. So there's a little coffin smoother, it's 1.5 inches long. So all sorts of stuff, Japanese kanas, so I have Japanese hand planes on this side, Japanese measuring tools on these sides. These are all major plane users. The only one I bought new, like I said, I have a shooting plane that I use for my shooting board, and so that one is a new plane. All of these tuck up under this top shelf. So this is a number 6 over here, and you only see a portion of it, the rest of it's tucked up under. But yeah, I have basically a full collection. I don't have a number 2, which I have no interest in, and obviously no number 1s. But I have 3s, 4s, 5s, 6, 7, 5 1/4, 5 1/2, 4 1/2, 606s, 605s, a little bit of everything. But I also have compass planes, if you guys haven't seen one of these. This guy you can twist and change the sole to be concave or go the other way and make it convex. So if you're doing any coopering or barrel work or work on boats, these come in really handy. A few shoulder planes, my smoothers are here. I have a really interesting, I found at my local flea market. This is a Stanley A78. Normally the 78s are steel, and this like cast iron, and this is an aluminum one. I also have a steel one, but I have a little fence and everything else tucked away in the drawers. So below in these cabinets, I have the drawers, and down here in the drawers, I have a little bit of everything. I'll pull a couple of these out. So they're dovetailed and everything else, but that's where I have router planes, big smoothers, card scrapers, kind of the apparel for these things. So if I have any little fences for like the 78s or whatever, they go in here. I also have spoke shaves, right? Spoke shaves and saws and hammers and things that fit down in there. But yeah, that's the hand plane cabinet. It also has a couple spots for saws. So I have a place for my Japanese saws, one on one side and one on the other. I never finished out these top portions. I assumed as I get things that I need a space for, that's what I'll add. So I have a rack of chisels on this side, a couple hand planes, but it's empty up here for future use. Same thing for up on the other side. So that's our hand plane cabinet, our marking cabinet, and our screws and nails. So let me turn this around and we'll look at another corner. All right, we just came from right here. Right here is the, I can reach out and touch right there, is the hand plane cabinet we were just looking at. And I was gonna show you this little corner, right? So this is the corner of my office. I have some small storage here, right? And I use it for templates for violins and templates for other things, and goat skins for banjos, and a host of other stuff. And some of them are empty because I know that I'm gonna fill them at one point. But this area, originally I'd had as a layout area, it has a self-healing mat on it. That way I could cut stuff and do paperwork and drawing or anything else on it. But as it is, any flat surface becomes storage, and so it ends up cluttering and collecting all sorts of stuff. And right now it has a whole host of hand planes on it that don't have a home yet. Some of these were given to me by my grandfather, some of them were found, some of them are worth restoring, some of them are not, and I'm still trying to figure out what to do with them. So I have some fun ones in here, and a bunch of hand saws. But this spot is kind of, not to say a relic, but it's a time and place when I was doing a lot of printmaking. My formal training is in printmaking. I was an art major at the University of Florida. I have a BFA from there with an emphasis in printmaking. I was a stone lithographer. I'll try and see if I can pick some pictures up and stuff here. But I store a lot of those prints down in here into these flat files. And we'll take a look at a couple of flat files in here that I use for other storage. But I did a lot of flat work for years and years and years. And so this was a place where I would cut things, collage things, stencil things, and all of that. As I transitioned more into fine woodworking, instruments, and all of this over the last couple of decades here, this has slowly kind of changed. So I like the spaces as they can flow and as they can be modified. So one day this may be something totally different. I'll always keep the flat files because these are totally full of stuff, and I store and rotate things in and out of here regularly. As I just knock over a coil of fret wire that needs to go back in the drawer. I'm awful at cleaning up. Okay, so, but also on the walls you'll see, these are artworks from previous exhibitions that I've had from all over the place. So in the backgrounds, we'll look at some of those things, I guess, if you guys want. I can go through a art tour at another time if you guys want. But yeah, so primary spaces, this is mainly for layouts and everything else, or right now, hand plane storage. So let's take a couple look at a couple of these drawers that I think some of y'all will find interesting. All right, this is kind of an odd angle. Oh, I can show you that too. This is kind of an odd angle, but you gotta see what's in some of these drawers. Also, I was gonna show you, so I got a good funny story. I like to engrave hand saws, or there you go, etch them. So like I said, I was a printmaker. So that skill set of etching copper, steel, brass plates, whatever, is kind of runs deep with me. But that's my wife. I had this really janky handsaw that I got at like Lowe's or wherever when I first got my first house, when I moved in here to Georgetown, Kentucky. And so I'd use it to help cut a fence or cut beams or whatever I was working on the house. And one day I was up in the attic cutting something, and I hated that saw. I hated everything about it. My clock's going off, sorry. But I hated everything about that handsaw. And I was up in the attic cutting away on a rafter, and the handsaw fell out of my hand and it went down, slid down into the insulation. And I was like, well, you're gonna get buried there. I don't want you anymore. So I was like, clearly I have plenty of handsaws. So I just came to my shop, sharpened one up, reconditioned the plate, and re-carved and stained the handle, reshaped some stuff on this, and then I put a picture of my wife on there because she's amazing. So this became my new home saw. I don't know why it's here. But I also have an awesome saw. If you guys want to see something, check that out. This is an ice saw, right? All steel construction, steel handle. Pretty awesome. Those are just sitting over here on the bench. But let's go back to our drawers. So some of these have prints in them. Some of them have tools in them. This is my caliper collection, right? So these are all calipers. This thing keeps going and going and going. So all calipers, irons, and chip breakers for hand planes. I have circle cutters, a couple of leather tools, some wrenches, some really cool wrenches. I'll show a couple of these. Check that out. It's an adjustable wrench and a plier wrench. So you can adjust it close and then squeeze it tight. I don't know why they don't make those. This one is a German submarine wrench. And so it's made with millimeter shims in it. And so you could force it down on a nut, it would automatically pick the right size. So you have basically an adjustable wrench. It doesn't take up weight. Now, a lot of these you'll see have tags on them. A large majority of all of this came from a gentleman who passed away in my town, and I ended up getting a lot of his tools. And he, I don't know how, he labeled everything. He had like a whole catalog for himself of his own tool collection, which is amazing. But he has like this little awl. It has a catalog number. It has the brand, how much he paid for it. This one was free. He got it from John Matt Matthews, right? But all of these had little stories behind them, so I've always left them on. And when I use these tools, I'll take the tag off and then I'll put it back on when I use it. I don't do that for all of them. Some of them I just take the tags off because it's not good information for me. Yeah, so lots of fun calipers and dividers. This is all spoke shaves and hand planes. Here's my normal Stanley number 78. Yeah, but I got some fun ones in here, some really unique ones. Everything from tiny little spoke shaves to really big, crazy ones. I have a couple skates, which are the fences for a Stanley 45, which I have a couple of. Yeah. Anyways, if you get into the weeds and you want to see more of these, I can give you a whole tour of all these kind of crazy tools. So these are all big chisels and turning tools. Oh, we can show you this fun one. So everything from big old slicks to dog head hammers, a little bit of everything in here. This is one of my favorites. This, hold on, I gotta get here so you guys can see this. Okay, so this is a strop sharpener for razors. And this one has the coolest feature. You actually crank it, and as you crank it, watch what happens. That razor lifts up, rotates, and comes back down. Let me see if I can get closer. All right, check this out. So as you crank it, when your thumb is away, it flips over, and by the time you come back, it goes down. How cool is that? So it sharpens both sides. I love that. All right, I have wooden bodied hand planes that I have no other place for here, as well as some saws that I've restored. This is the whale saw. If you haven't seen that, I got videos on how I did that. Dang, that thing's sharp. It's a floor saw that I totally redid. That's pretty cool. And some levels and spoke shaves and other stuff. So I have tools, I have print storage, so fine art prints, all the jazz in here. Oh, remember I said I was a lithographer earlier? Yeah, there you go. So, hand-pulled stone lithograph. Got a bunch of those. Anyhow, so that's this little corner. Let's move to another spot. All right, working our way around the room here, just beyond this little wall right here, which is actually a bookshelf, is the little spot we were looking at with the flat files. So I'll show you this bookshelf. It's basically where I've had hand tool storage for a long time before I built the tool cabinets and stuff, but now it still has hand tool storage in it. But the main feature here is two things. One, this card catalog. This is the last card catalog that was on the Georgetown College campus, and I was able to get my hands on it, thankfully. I use it for tons of stuff now. And so, thankfully, my wife was nice enough to label things for me, because I like seeing her handwriting around. And that was not my idea. That's a good idea, but it was a student of mine that recommended it. So awesome idea. I was going to write stuff on it, and I was like, no, that's a really good idea. But I have a little bit of everything. So everything from clamps for violins, the spool clamps, to a little bit of everything. Pegs, tuners, mainly instrument making up top, like luthier tools up top, and supplies. And the bottom has everything from restoration things like totes and knobs for hand planes, but I also have some hammer drawers. So I have little miniature hammers, right? And a bunch of stuff in here. One of my favorites though, I gotta share with y'all, are these. When I came here to Kentucky, in my office, there's a closet, and in that closet, there was a bag, and inside that bag were these. I have no idea what they are, right? I have an idea now, but I don't know what they are, still, basically. I thought they were just massive Q-tips or something for surgical stuff, like medical things, I don't know. But I got 2 full drawers of these still left after using them for like 18 years. So I got a whole nother drawer of them right there. And then someone made the point that they thought they were for cleaning out the ears of horses, since we have horses around here, which I thought was great, but I have a feeling it's for something else, but I don't know. If you guys have any ideas or want to like make a guess, just tell me. But anyhow, this is all used for tool storage and for material storage, but the other main feature that you've been hearing from time to time is this clock. And so my grandfather was a clock repairman. That was one of his hobbies. As long as I've known him, he's worked on clocks. So he had a trailer out back of his house that he used as his clock shop. And so we would always go out there, and it was a really special place to me. And it's just really beautiful, I don't know, good for my spirit to be hanging out there with him. And so I really connected with how he fixed things, how he made things in a way. And so one day I was down there visiting him, and we were going through, and he had this clock, and it's a grandmother clock. It's not a grandfather clock because it's skinnier. And he said, what do you think about that? I said, oh, I think it's beautiful. I said, it's interesting because it's light. It's not dark. And we talked about it. He's like, put it in your truck. And I was like, oh, no. He's like, no, let's go. And so he wrapped it all up. We put it in my truck. And I've put it against this wall specifically because the next room over is a room that I teach in quite regularly. And this clock will echo into that room. And so anywhere in this kind of area of the building, I can hear it when the time's going. So I can actually keep time without having to look at my phone or a watch or anything like that. So anytime I'm in the studio on campus, this clock is running. When I leave for breaks, I stop it, right? And I have a few other clocks I'll show you of his that I keep in the office as well. But yeah, so this is a really special kind of thing for me and my family. Oh, I don't know if this is in frame. So this is a Jefferson ladder. I made this as part of an exhibition that I spoke about earlier where I did that house. I'll put a video or picture up of the ladders right here. But if you haven't seen it, a Jefferson ladder cracks open from a beam, and so I could use this anywhere in the shop. And then when you're done with it, it folds back up and goes away. Ooh, I keep all sorts of fun stuff around. So I used to teach a class on traditional Asian arts, and we used to tattoo fruit. And someone tattooed this historic painting of Jesus on an orange. That's an orange. And it fell behind a bookshelf, and I didn't realize it. And then I found it like 7 years later, and it's like mummified. It's like super hard. How cool is that? Right here also is a fence post. This is massive. Hold on. This is a large piece of, I forget what they called it. It's from my grandparents' farm, my great-grandparents' farm. And it's a fence post. It's got to be hundreds of years old here. But they have a name for it. I forget what it is. I don't remember now. But anyways, it's Osage orange. But they call it hedge apple. I think it's a hedge apple tree. But it's a nice piece of Osage. And I've used this in a project before. I made a stool for myself, which I'll show you guys in a bit, I guess. that has 3 generations in it, and this is one of those generations. So this is a fence post. You'll see me reference earlier. What to do with it next? No idea, but it's huge on the bottom. Okay. So that's our little corner here. Oh, one more. I gotta find this machine again. This was from a machine that I made years and years ago. You can't really see it, maybe up close you can. There are fine lines, you can hear them. There are fine lines on this cup. I made an artwork where I recorded my voice like a record, like on wax cylinders, but I recorded it on disposable cups. And people could buy the cups for like $5, and that's the only way you could hear the stories. Okay. Let's move on. All right, while we're over here by the door, I forgot to mention this little guy. Funny long story, but this is my favorite broom. It's a handmade broom out of a crutch. It is wonderful to use. You use the top and the hand, little hold in the middle as you sweep. You can also put it under your arm and sweep. But I thought this was the coolest broom. It's by a local broom maker in Ashland, Kentucky. I saw him at the Woodland Craft Fair in Lexington and ended up buying one of these from him, as well as one made from a tennis racket, which was super cool. But I couldn't just use a regular dustpan for that. I thought that was really like demeaning to the broom. And so I made a first aid kit dustpan. And so it lays flat on the floor, sweep into it, and then when you go to a trash can, it has a latch that opens the front, and you can just drop everything all out. So when you see that in the background, it's my my daily dustpan and crutch broom. Yeah. Also, one of the most cryptic notes I've ever gotten. I like to hold on to lots of little things. I had a guy in 2017, because the date's on here, tried to give me a peach tree, and he's kind of a cryptic, interesting old guy. And so he's like, do you want a tree? And I was like, well, I don't know what kind of tree. He's like, I'll give you a tree. And I was like, I don't know what form it's in or how big it is, but it was basically like a little sapling, not even, just tiny. And but he left this under my door. He said, 12/8/17, Daniel Graham, I left a peach tree seedling for you on the north side of the east pillar, just southeast of the front door of the west side of the building. What the heck does that mean, right? The timber seedlings, have timber seedlings if you want some more, right? He left his name and phone number. I couldn't find where he was talking about, right? The north side of the east pillar, just southeast of the front door of the west side of the building. Yeah. Then I found out later, it wasn't, he didn't leave it at my building. He left it at a different building on campus. Anyhow, but I thought that was wonderful, so I saved that. So I saved little bits of stuff. I'm going to pan down my little saving wall. It's got a little bit of everything. We won't go through stories, but just so you can see it. So right when you walk in my office, this is what you see. I gotta point out these two little things. This was when my daughter was learning how to read. We had pictures of her doing all sorts of stuff. So this is her with a goldfish going in her mouth with the word snack. It's just beautiful. This was a little hammer I made for a karakuri, which is a Japanese puppet, when I was over in Japan. Yeah, each little thing kind of comes from somewhere or someone. Quotes from people, little things we found. All different friends from all different times. All right, so this is hard to show, but I gotta talk about it. Over here is a poster from Japan when I was over there for a karakuri workshop. 15 years ago probably. Little crutch broom right there, obviously. But this up here is a painting that a student did of my family, which is super cool, and it fits perfect in that spot. So shout out to Brooklyn for an awesome painting. It's a funny story, so I'll tell it. She was doing a painting project, and I walked in, and I saw this frog with an acorn instrument, and I said, is he playing a guitar? And she said, no. I said, oh, is it a banjo? And she said, yeah. I said, that's the coolest thing. And then I started to see the other frog next to it was dancing and moving. And I thought, oh man, that's so cool. My daughter dances. And I hadn't caught on. And so every time I went into the painting room to see something or somebody, I'd see this painting slowly developing. And it took me a while till one day I was walking by talking to another student, and I said, that is so weird, man. I said, it's like this little frog thing where like there's a knitter, which my wife does, and my son did Rubik's Cube at the time, and there's this dancer and then a banjo playing frog. And all the students just looked at me and they're like, wait for it. It's coming. And I was like, is this my family? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, what? And so she has one of my finger hammers up on the wall, which is like a frog finger in this painting. There's paintings of my wife's, one of her major art shows up there as well. A little family portrait, and a box of Ritz crackers, because I eat Cheez-Its or Ritz like nobody's business. Anyways, it's a very special gift. It'll be there forever. All right. Now, this space is the major collector of things. It eats stuff, and it stays there for a long time. But it's a big set of flat files that I use for storage for fine art prints, student work, as well as a bunch of other stuff. But on top here, I have a little bit of everything. This is a karakuri I made when I was over in Japan, like I mentioned earlier. This is a little drummer. And so this guy, the little arms and legs move. Where are you, little legs? So there's the leg. There's the head going back and forth, and the arms will wiggle, right? So, yeah. Oh, we got too many fun things to share. I have an extra tea kettle. I made a tea kettle into a banjo. If you haven't seen that, there's a whole series of videos on it. But I got an extra silver one in case anybody wants one. Sitting around. These are projects that are in process. This is a bass guitar mixed with a banjo that I'm making for a client. So these kind of sit out here as they work. I have my Cheez-It cup. This was made for me by a student named Faith Wisecup, which was a super special gift. She made it for me that it's left-handed because apparently I talk with my right hands all the time. And so this way I could carry on my Cheez-Its and talk. It's a real problem when students make cups for you and you use them for Cheez-Its. I also got this awesome octopus cup from a student of mine, Jalen. Shout out to Jalen for my new little cup. But these will be floaters over here. A couple clocks from my grandfather. So those are around as well. And artwork in general. Both, but we're going to show you. All right, we'll show you this. It's really dusty, but it won't be in a second. This is a sculpture that I traded an artwork for by a friend of mine named Carrie Waverly. And it's a beautiful little ceramic sculpture, but it has on it, let me get some light, I'll get up close, you guys can see it. Super fun little sculpture. Has steel wire, ceramics, and pig intestine on it. Pretty cool. But this little lady lives over here. Oh, also a drawing from my daughter from years ago. Get the light over here. She said I should make a Cheez-It banjo. Apparently I have a real Cheez-It problem that I need to seek help about. All right. So little bits of everything. Auger bits live over there. I don't know why I live there, but that's where they live and that's where I use them. So I always know they're there, which is really weird because my brace is on this wall, my bits are on that wall, and that's how it's been for like 15 years, and that's how it works. Oh, I also have a super, okay. We got too many fun things. This is bark from one of the sequoias when I was out last there. I know I shouldn't steal from the national park, but I did. So also I had a student steal something from me from a national park. One time, piece of wood. Yeah, a little bit of everything over here. All the fun stuff. Oh, I gotta cut up, man. I don't know why I'm doing this tour. I got too many things. I've never used this, but I always keep it. This is a coyote skull. It's a coyote skull made out of crayons. And so you can actually hold it and draw with it. It was made for me by a friend. But I don't have the heart to like draw with it. I want to keep it as is. So solid crayon coyote skull. Also recently, we have a friend. This came from Knight Hall, which was a dormitory right next door to us that we used for an art studio. And this is a falcon that one of my students, also Brooklyn, the same one that did the frog painting, she found this in her studio when she was moving out. And she brought it to me as a little gift. So for Daniel, parting gift from Knight Hall. It's all rotted away. It doesn't smell bad. It's not whatever. She's really beautiful. But I have no idea what I'm going to do with her. So maybe one day we'll figure that out. The next layer is just a sink and some other stuff with some artwork around it. I can pan by there. But we're going to go into my office next door. And so we'll pan into there. I'll show you where we're going. And we can tour around that really quickly. All right, so this is a space you're probably familiar with if you've seen anything on YouTube with me before. This is where I sit usually and play instruments for a quick look series. The microphones are still set up from where I just recorded this like background banjo video the other day. But yeah, so this is kind of my technical office. When I came here, Georgetown College, this is my office for me being a professor. And the room next door, which was an awkward classroom that didn't have good access for students, they were trying to figure out what to do with it. And they offered me a studio space somewhere else on campus, or this weird little room combo thing on the top floor of the art building. So I'd be doing stairs all day. I'd rather do that than be somewhere else on campus. And so I took the room combo thing here. And so this is how it kind of functions out. So this is technically my office. So I have instruments you've seen up here, come and go. Some kind of fun family stuff on the walls. You'll see these dogs up here. My mom did that needlepoint for me when I was like in 3rd grade. It used to hang in my room when I was a kid. It's pretty awesome. A little bit of everything, some more clocks. Lots of just fun stories about everything. This chair and this desk were part of an art exhibition. I'll put a picture up here. And it was on stilts that I had made for it. It was growing out of a mound of dirt and grass. And I knew that it would most likely not sell in that exhibition. And so I made it thinking of myself in the future. So we'll go through that little desk. That's the only desk I have in here right now. Oh, right here is also the stool that I was going to mention earlier. This is a banjo to restore on top of it. So this stool, don't knock over microphones. This stool I made as an adjustable stool. It's made from that fence post you saw earlier, that Osage orange fence post. The walnut is from Georgetown, Kentucky. The screw is handmade, as well as everything else. But it threads up and down, so it can be heightened or lowered. It also has a pin that I can pivot the seat with. The tractor seat was the seat my dad learned to drive on in Mississippi on a farm. The fence post came from my grandfather's farm, and this came from Kentucky. So it's a few generations in a little stool, which I think is pretty cool. So over here I have a bookshelf, all sorts of art books, reference books that I use in teaching, and some other things, file cabinet, kind of basic stuff. Let's get in close though, and I'll show you some things about this desk that are pretty cool. All right, so this is kind of a hard area to film in, but we'll show you. So once again, all traditionally handmade, all traditional dovetails, all that fun stuff. So drawers, top and bottom, nothing wild. The cool part, one of them are these. These are my little runners to hold the top, and they have dovetails on all sides, all 4 sides. This was actually on the cover of a magazine. I don't know if I can find a picture of that or not. But it's actually made by steaming out and opening like a flower all of these dovetails and then putting in the matching piece and then steaming it shut and cleaning it all up. So dovetails all around for these guys. It's made from cherry and mineral stained elm. Has some fun treasures in it. This is the stuffed rabbit. that the Rabbit violin was a part of. If you haven't seen that, I'll tell you about that later. Have traditional little drawers, all dovetailed as well. But it has a pocket for every day of the week, thinking that I would use it in that respect at some point, but who am I lying? I'm never going to use it for that. Yeah, so it holds some fun treasures, but one of them is this lamp. So I needed a light to read by when I was here working, and I was missing my dad, and I was thinking about making some kind of nautical big thing. He was in the Navy for most of his life. I thought that would be pretty cool. But it didn't really work out in my brain. And then I started thinking about the ladder that's in our garage, this painter's ladder that I kind of grew up with. So I asked my mom to go out and measure the ladder. I got these very specific measurements of the ladder. And so that's the painter's ladder. It's a miniature replica of my dad's painting ladder. But when you open it, it turns on. And so it actually is a lamp. You see the light here. So this will close. It has a rechargeable battery in the paint tray. There you go. And it opens up just like that. Pretty cool. So it fills this little space right there. I got to share a couple things here. I don't know how old this is, 1988. I got an award for a neatness award. So proof that at some point in time I was neat. But this little nail was actually bent by hand by one of my students. He was a strongman competitor, and I watched this dude bend it like this and then put it in his hand and squeeze it and bend that nail. That is crazy time. Photographed by my friend and colleague Daryl Kinser. Let me pull this down. One of the truest statements ever made about painting. Let you read that. Got some artworks from friends. This is by Sean Eisnock. I have a, so pull this down. You guys are getting a real treat here. Here go. This little satchel holds a traditional, and get it out without touching it. This is a No theater mask that I carved and made with a Japanese visiting artist that was here. Supposed to hold it only by the sides where the strings go. Beautifully finished. It's a really fascinating process. Not only carving it, but the surface finish is made with ground up seashells. Pretty cool. So this one lives in there. I'll show you the inside. Pretty cool. Looks like Chewbacca. Okay. All right, 180 degrees from where we just were, looking at the desk and all of the instrument walls over there. I have a couple of large cabinets here that I use for storing varnish and wood glues and materials like that. Some old books, routers, whatever else is in here. Right where I'm standing back here used to be my scrap pile. It was like 10 feet tall. It was on a massive set of like library style bookshelves, and I had it organized by species and stuff. And then I had a falling out with the fire marshal, and they made me move it. And so I ended up kind of redesigning. So this is still very much open. This used to be all totally full. I have some instruments hanging over here. I have, these are dressers from old dormitories, and so I just vinyled the front of them. But I use this for all sorts of material storage as well, but also setup storage. I use this as a place to set up banjos and any other instrument that I'm working on. If I need fine detail and good music, I'll put it on, put some lights on, and use it here. Over here, I just have a couple of grinders, one from my friend Cam, who passed away a few years ago, the same gentleman, Wild Guy, that gave me the poplar for the bench. So this is where I do rough sharpening, masking tape storage, and whatever else is, let me see in the video. I do have this little cabinet that's made out of a drawer, which is a longer story, but the president of our college, Rosemary Allen, she had this desk in her office that was amazing. and it was built in the room in the 60s. And so they were going to get rid of it. They needed to change it. And so instead of just ditching it or breaking it apart, they gave it to me. So I went in and tore it all apart into its components, and I have the drawers and the carcass pieces, and I'm going to make it into a set of tool cabinets. That's what's eventually going to go here. So I have all of those kind of stashed over here, and that's just one of them. So it's the drawer pulled out and mounted to the wall like a bookcase. So I store a bunch of other stuff in there. I got some fun little projects back there for another time eventually. But yeah, so this holds everything else power tool wise as well. Yeah, I think that's about it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the tour. We'll wrap up maybe in the other room. I figured we'll just wrap up over here. How can we wrap up a video without playing a little something? So thank you guys for taking the time to watch this, and for those that were requesting this and interested in seeing kind of where I work and in my studio space. I hope this scratched that itch for you. Yeah, if there's anything else you want to see, I know someone had mentioned they want to see how I sharpen my tools. So eventually, when I get a moment, I'll do a tool sharpening demo video, I guess. But if there's anything else you want to see or know, leave a comment and we'll make sure it happens. So we'll play a little strumming dulcimer on the way out. So enjoy your day. Thank you for watching.